Harsh penalties imposed after the Bahrain tests. Stay until the end to witness Hamilton's stunning penalty. Subscribe only if you want Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship and be crowned as the greatest driver in history. The engines are roaring, the tension is palpable, and the world is watching. The long, grueling wait has finally come to an end. After months of intense speculation, cryptic team statements, radical car design theories, and endless debates over who holds the upper hand, Formula One has returned. The 2025 season has officially begun, and with it, the relentless pursuit of perfection that defines the pinnacle of motorsport. The Bahrain International Circuit is the stage where the first chapter of this new campaign unfolds, a high-speed theater where champions are forged, weaknesses are exposed, and the first battle lines are drawn. The stakes are astronomical. Every single team arrives with ambitions, every driver is out to prove a point, and every engineer knows that the margins between success and failure are thinner than ever. In a sport where milliseconds separate triumph from heartbreak, the work done in pre-season testing can define the entire year. Subscribe only if you want Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship and be crowned as the greatest driver in history. The pit lane is a symphony of controlled chaos. Mechanics, draped in team colors, swarm around the cars like precision-calibrated machines, their hands moving with the efficiency of a well-rehearsed orchestra. Engineers hunch over glowing telemetry screens, dissecting data in real time, scanning for anomalies, searching for the perfect balance between speed, reliability, and efficiency. Team principals hover in the background, faces unreadable, concealing their emotions behind a facade of calmness. But beneath the surface, they are acutely aware that these first few days could shape their fortunes for months to come. And then, at precisely 10 a.m. local time, the moment arrives. The green light flickers on. The silence is shattered. The first cars roll onto the track, their engines wailing through the desert air, their aerodynamic appendages slicing through the atmosphere like weapons of war. Formula One is back. A singular moment instantly dominates the conversation. A sight so surreal that even the most seasoned fans need a second to process it. Lewis Hamilton, draped in the unmistakable scarlet of Ferrari, exits the garage. For the first time in his legendary career, the 7-time world champion is no longer encased in the familiar silver and black of Mercedes. Instead, he is the chosen one for the Tifosi, the driver upon whom an entire nation has pinned its hopes. The car gleams under the Arabian sun, its livery an exquisite blend of tradition and innovation, but it is Hamilton who steals the spotlight. He walks towards his machine with purpose, his expression unreadable, his body language exuding a quiet yet unshakable confidence. The moment his hands touch the wheel, history is rewritten. He pulls down his visor. A flick of the switch. The engine ignites. A thunderous growl erupts. And just like that, he is gone, accelerating onto the circuit with a speed and grace that only a driver of his caliber can summon. Subscribe only if you want Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship and be crowned as the greatest driver in history. But the Ferrari garage is not the only place where history is unfolding. Just a few meters away, another major shift in the sport's ever-evolving narrative is taking place. For the first time in over a decade, Mercedes enters the season without Hamilton. The dynasty they built together has ended. A new chapter is being written, and George Russell now finds himself as the de facto leader of a team in transition. He shoulders the responsibility with a steely determination, knowing full well that proving himself as Mercedes' undisputed number one is an enormous challenge. But he is not alone. On the other side of the garage, a fresh face prepares to make his mark. Kimi Antonelli, the teenage prodigy whose name has been whispered in the corridors of power for years, steps into the cockpit of a Formula One car for the first time in an official capacity. The Italian sensation, backed by Toto Wolff and heralded as the next great talent to emerge from the junior ranks, carries an immense burden of expectation. His first installation lap will be watched with eagle-eyed intensity, as every observer in the paddock attempts to gauge whether this young phenom is truly ready for the big stage. Meanwhile, in the Red Bull camp, an entirely different kind of pressure looms. Max Verstappen, now a 3-time world champion, is the undisputed king of the grid. His dominance over the past seasons has been near total, his ability to extract the absolute maximum from any given situation bordering on supernatural. Yet, despite his supremacy, there are whispers. Has Red Bull peaked? Can they maintain their stranglehold on the sport? Have the others caught up? Verstappen, unmoved by speculation, goes about his business with his usual ruthless efficiency. His laps are pinpoint precise, his feedback to the engineers sharp and direct. But while Verstappen's position is unshakable, his teammate finds himself in a vastly different situation. Sergio Perez is under immense scrutiny. His performances in 2024 were erratic, his place in the team constantly debated, his future anything but secure. With Red Bull's ever-evolving door policy when it comes to second drivers, he knows that a slow start to the season could spell disaster. Every lap he completes is a statement. Every sector time is a declaration of intent. The pressure is suffocating. Subscribe only if you want Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship and be crowned as the greatest driver in history. Further down the grid, the battle lines are drawn in the ferocious midfield. McLaren, buoyed by their remarkable resurgence in 2024, looks to solidify its position as a genuine frontrunner. Lando Norris, still chasing that elusive first Grand Prix victory, pushes his car to the absolute limit, determined to prove that his time has come. Oscar Piastri, calm and calculated, methodically builds his pace, his talent undeniable, his ambition sky-high. Aston Martin, led by the ageless warrior Fernando Alonso, seeks redemption after their mid-season slump last year. The Spaniard, ever the relentless competitor, wastes no time in making his presence felt, attacking every lap with a kind of tenacity that has defined his legendary career. And then there is the unpredictable chaos of the lower midfield. Williams, once a fallen giant, now appears poised for a resurgence. Alpine, caught in a web of internal restructuring, desperately needs to regain lost ground. Haas, often dismissed as an afterthought, carries quiet optimism after significant investment. RB, formerly AlphaTauri, now fully integrated into Red Bull's long-term vision, has drivers fighting not just for points, but for their very survival in the sport. As the sun arcs across the sky, the session unfolds in a mixture of triumph and tribulation. Some teams find themselves extracting more performance than expected, while others stumble upon unforeseen issues. Ferrari battles with minor cooling concerns. Red Bull fine-tunes its rear wing after detecting slight instability. McLaren detects unexpected floor vibrations that require immediate adjustment. And then, just as the rhythm of the day settles, the first major incident occurs. A red flag is thrown. A car is stranded on track. A rookie has overstepped the limit, sending his machine spinning into the barriers. The marshals rush onto the scene. The paddock collectively holds its breath. Subscribe only if you want Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship and be crowned as the greatest driver in history. Back in the garages, the data analysts dive into their work. Every lap time, every fuel load, every aerodynamic adjustment is meticulously examined. Teams strategize in hushed voices, discussing tire degradation, energy deployment strategies, and potential qualifying simulations. The weight of expectation is crushing, the search for performance relentless. Beyond the track, the world speculates. Social media erupts with theories. Fans dissect every moment. Some are convinced Ferrari is playing the long game, hiding their true pace. Others believe Mercedes has engineered a comeback. Questions swirl around Red Bull's supremacy. The answers remain elusive, hidden within terabytes of data yet to be fully analyzed. But one thing is certain, the war for the 2025 championship has begun. Every lap from this point forward matters. Every decision carries consequences. Every moment is a step closer to glory or despair. Formula One is not just a sport, it is an obsession, a spectacle, a battlefield where the brave, the bold, and the brilliant carve their legacies. And this is just the beginning. Subscribe only if you want Hamilton to win his 8th World Championship and be crowned as the greatest driver in history. Red Bull wasted no time in making a powerful statement as pre-season testing got underway. With Max Verstappen sitting out the morning session, the responsibility of setting the tone for the team fell on the shoulders of Liam Lawson, the young reserve driver who had been handed a golden opportunity to showcase his talent. From the moment the pit lane opened, Lawson attacked the track with an aggression that left no doubt about his intentions. His lap times were nothing short of electrifying, consistently topping the timing charts and sending a clear warning to the rest of the field. Red Bull was still the dominant force. The RB20, an evolution of last season's all-conquering machine, appeared to be an absolute weapon in the hands of Lawson. The car hugged the asphalt with surgical precision, demonstrating incredible stability through the high-speed corners and remarkable efficiency on the straights. Every lap completed was a testament to the team's engineering excellence. The aerodynamics, The power unit, the balance, everything seemed to be in perfect harmony. Lawson's impressive early pace was no fluke. It was a message, a reminder that Red Bull had no intention of relinquishing their stranglehold on Formula One. However, Red Bull was not alone in making an early impact. Mercedes, eager to prove that their struggles of the past were finally behind them, wasted no time in responding. Lewis Hamilton, a driver whose hunger for victory had never diminished despite the challenges of the previous seasons, immediately slotted in behind Lawson on the timing sheets. The W15 looked planted, controlled, and, most importantly, competitive. Hamilton's radio messages were filled with cautious optimism, praising the balance of the car while highlighting areas where improvements could still be made. Unlike previous years, where Mercedes had grappled with porpoising and unpredictable handling, this new machine appeared to be a step in the right direction. The engineers in the garage exchanged knowing glances. They weren't ready to make bold claims, but the data suggested that they were back in the hunt. Meanwhile, Ferrari had reasons to be quietly confident. The team, under immense pressure to break their championship drought, had put significant effort into refining the SF25. The early signs were promising. Charles Leclerc, always eager to push the limits, was methodical in his approach, extracting valuable data lap after lap. But the real surprise came from Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Despite being a rookie, the young Italian displayed maturity far beyond his years. His ability to adapt, his precision through the technical sections of the track, his controlled aggression, it was all there. By the end of the first hour, Antonelli had secured a spot in the top three, proving that he wasn't just in Formula One to learn, he was here to compete. But raw speed in pre-season testing only tells half the story. This wasn't just about being the fastest over a single lap, it was about understanding the intricacies of the car, about simulating race conditions, about deciphering the hidden strengths and weaknesses of each team. At McLaren, a different philosophy was in play. Oscar Piastri completed only a handful of laps in the opening session, leading to murmurs of speculation in the paddock. Was McLaren struggling with setup issues, or were they deliberately keeping their true pace under wraps? The team had been one of the biggest improvers in the previous season, and there was an unshakable feeling that they had something special up their sleeve. Lando Norris, watching from the garage, remained characteristically tight-lipped, offering only cryptic remarks about their long-run potential. Further down the paddock, Aston Martin was operating with military precision. Fernando Alonso, the ever-meticulous strategist, was deeply engrossed in telemetry data. The AMR-24 showed flashes of brilliance, strong in medium-speed corners, efficient in straight-line speed. But Alonso, a perfectionist to the core, was pushing for more. "We need to work on the mechanical grip," he remarked over the radio, his voice calm but authoritative. His experience allowed him to identify even the subtlest flaws, and the Aston Martin engineers listened intently, making real-time adjustments. Alonso wasn't interested in setting the fastest lap. He was focused on ensuring that the car would be a weapon when it truly mattered, on race day. Not every team was experiencing smooth sailing. Haas was already running into reliability headaches. Kevin Magnussen's morning session was plagued by interruptions, mechanical issues forcing the team to make constant tweaks. Every minute spent in the garage was a minute lost on track, and in Formula One, data was more valuable than gold. The frustration on the faces of the Haas engineers was evident. The early signs were concerning, and if the team didn't resolve these problems quickly, they risked falling into the same cycle of underperformance that had haunted them for seasons. At Williams, things weren't much better. Logan Sargent spent more time in the pit lane than on track, leading to murmurs of concern about whether the British outfit had truly made progress over the winter. Every team was here to gather information, to extract every ounce of knowledge possible before the season opener, but Williams was losing out on valuable testing mileage. Their program was being disrupted, and that was never a good sign. As the day progressed, the focus shifted from one-lap pace to long-run simulations. This was where the true contenders began to emerge. A car could be quick over a single lap, but if it struggled with tire degradation, it would be a sitting duck on race day. Red Bull, with Verstappen now in the cockpit, looked ominously strong. His long-run pace was relentless. His lap times remained astonishingly consistent, lap after lap, a sign that the RB20 was not only fast but also remarkably efficient. Anyone who had hoped Red Bull's dominance would fade was being given a harsh reality check. Verstappen was still the gold standard, and Red Bull had once again built a car capable of crushing the opposition. Mercedes continued their methodical approach. George Russell, taking over in the afternoon, ran a series of race simulations that looked solid. The W15 appeared kinder to its tires than its predecessors, a critical factor if the team wanted to challenge for wins again. Russell's feedback mirrored Hamilton's, positive, but realistic. They weren't getting ahead of themselves, but for the first time in 2 years, there was genuine belief that they could be back in the title fight. Ferrari, too, looked competitive. Leclerc's long-run pace was respectable, but the true test would come when teams began pushing their engines to the limit. Carlos Sainz, always analytical, worked through his own program, ensuring that Ferrari had a clear understanding of their package. The determination in the Ferrari garage was palpable. They knew they had a car that could fight, but only if every detail was perfected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the first day of testing came to an end. The paddock was left with more questions than answers. Had McLaren deliberately concealed their true performance? Could Mercedes finally challenge for race victories again? Was Ferrari genuinely ready to take the fight to Red Bull? And above all, was there any real weakness in the RB20, or was Red Bull simply toying with their rivals? One thing was certain: the 2025 Formula One season was shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable in years. Every team had something to prove. Every driver had a mission. Every lap turned in testing carried weight. The psychological warfare had already begun, the mind games were in full swing, and in a few weeks' time, the real battle would commence. When the lights went out in Bahrain for the season opener, all the speculation, all the theories, all the cautious optimism would be put to the ultimate test. And in Formula One, there is nowhere to hide. Further down the paddock, Alpine looked like a team on the verge of a long-awaited breakthrough. The weight issues that had haunted them in previous campaigns, dragging them down in straight-line speed and compromising their tire management, appeared to be a thing of the past. The Endstone-based outfit had spent much of the last few years oscillating between flashes of brilliance and moments of frustration, their ambitions always undercut by a car that lacked the consistency to mount a sustained challenge. But today, something felt different. There was a newfound sharpness to their approach, an unshakable sense that they had finally unlocked the potential that had eluded them for so long. Jack Doohan, stepping into the cockpit, wasted no time in putting the machine through its paces. His laps were not just fast, they were precise, methodical, and devoid of the instability that had plagued Alpine's previous efforts. Every sector time told a story of improvement, of a car that was not just responding well to driver input but actively rewarding aggression in a way that suggested genuine balance. The engineers, huddled around their screens, exchanged subtle nods of approval, their expressions betraying a cautious optimism. Could this be the year Alpine finally broke free from the shackles of midfield mediocrity? Could they emerge as a dark horse, capable of delivering shock results when the conditions were right? The whispers in the paddock grew louder. There was no denying that something was brewing at Alpine. Meanwhile, at the other end of the pit lane, an entirely different kind of intrigue was unfolding. Racing Bulls, the rebranded version of AlphaTauri, had arrived in Bahrain with a car that sent shockwaves through the paddock the moment it was unveiled. The similarities to Red Bull's all-conquering RB19 were impossible to ignore. Every aerodynamic surface, every intricate design detail, every minute tweak to the chassis screamed direct influence from the reigning world champions. Had Racing Bulls finally cracked the code? For years, the Faenza-based squad had operated as Red Bull's junior team, existing in the shadow of their parent outfit, developing young talent but rarely mounting a serious challenge of their own. But this was something different. This wasn't just a junior team making incremental improvements, this was a statement of intent. Yuki Tsunoda, now stepping into a leadership role within the team, attacked the track with a newfound confidence. His lines were aggressive, his braking points razor-sharp. There was an unmistakable urgency to his driving, as if he knew that this was his moment to prove that he wasn't just a promising talent but a driver capable of leading a team to new heights. Every lap was a data-gathering exercise, a meticulous process of understanding the car's limits, extracting every ounce of performance, and ensuring that Racing Bulls would enter the season with a weapon at their disposal rather than an afterthought. The murmurs in the paddock turned into outright speculation. Had Red Bull quietly funneled more resources than ever before into their sister team? Were Racing Bulls about to disrupt the very hierarchy of Formula One by fielding a car that was closer to their championship-winning counterpart than the FIA's regulations would ideally allow? If the early signs were anything to go by, Racing Bulls might not just be in the midfield fight, they might be looking at something far more ambitious. And then, just as the intrigue surrounding Racing Bulls reached its peak, the entire paddock's attention snapped to an entirely different spectacle. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, the man who had rewritten the history books and defined an era of dominance with Mercedes, suddenly pulled into the Ferrari garage far earlier than expected. The cameras pounced. Every broadcast feed cut to the same image: Hamilton, still in his car, surrounded by a sea of Ferrari engineers, his expression unreadable. What was happening? Was it a routine adjustment? A minor technical issue? Or was there something deeper at play? The speculation was instantaneous, relentless, and unyielding. The reality was simple: Hamilton's move to Ferrari was the most seismic shift in Formula One in over a decade. It was a gamble that had the potential to either cement his legacy as the greatest driver of all time or leave him wondering if he had made the biggest mistake of his career. Inside the Ferrari garage, mechanics worked furiously around the car. Was there an issue with the balance? Was Hamilton struggling to adapt to the unique characteristics of the SF24? For a driver who had spent over a decade inside the cocoon of Mercedes' engineering philosophy, this was uncharted territory. The Scuderia operated differently, thought differently, built their machines differently. And while Hamilton was a master of adaptation, this was an entirely new challenge. Outside, the paddock buzzed with theories. Had Ferrari overpromised and underdelivered? Was Hamilton second-guessing his decision? Or was this merely the beginning of an intricate process of acclimatization, a driver meticulously working his way into the DNA of a team that had long been defined by its unpredictability? The tension was almost suffocating. Every expert, every former driver, every commentator with a microphone had their own interpretation. But while the veterans of the sport battled with the weight of expectation, a new name was beginning to rewrite the script. Kimi Antonelli, the young Italian prodigy, had arrived in Formula One with the kind of hype that bordered on mythical. He was supposed to be fast. He was supposed to be talented. But what no one had expected was just how quickly he would make his presence felt. His approach was fearless yet controlled, aggressive yet refined. With every lap, his confidence grew, his times dropped, and the paddock began to take notice. And then, in a moment that sent jaws dropping, he did the unthinkable: he topped the timesheets. A rookie. In his first official preseason test. Leading the pack. The implications were enormous. Was this a one-off moment of brilliance, a perfect storm of light fuel loads and track evolution? Or was this a glimpse of something truly special? The comparisons were inevitable. Was this the emergence of the next generational talent? A driver who could follow in the footsteps of the greats and redefine what was possible for a rookie in Formula One? The paddock buzzed with speculation. If Antonelli was already performing at this level in testing, what would happen when the real racing began? Would he sustain this level of performance? Would he crack under the weight of expectation? Or was this simply the first chapter in a career that could one day rival the legends of the sport? Everywhere you looked, the signs of an explosive season were forming. The rivalries were sharpening. The pecking order was shifting. The unexpected was becoming the norm. And with every lap turned, every sector time logged, one thing became abundantly clear: Formula One was not just heading into another season. It was heading into chaos, unpredictability, and drama on a scale that had not been seen in years. The balance of power was tilting. The established order was under threat. And as the engines roared and the sun dipped below the horizon, the only certainty was that nothing would be certain. This wasn't just testing. This was the calm before the storm. The engines roared back to life, sending shockwaves through the tarmac as the paddock collectively held its breath. The moment everyone had been waiting for had arrived: another day of preseason testing, another opportunity to decode the mysteries of the upcoming Formula One season. For teams, drivers, and fans alike, this was more than just a series of laps. It was a battlefield where milliseconds could determine the fate of a championship, where every tweak in aerodynamics, every subtle change in setup, and every mechanical adjustment held the power to transform a team's trajectory. Every piece of data was a puzzle waiting to be solved, every on-track moment a glimpse into the intricate chess match unfolding behind the scenes. In the cutthroat world of F1, there is no room for error, no margin for hesitation, only relentless pursuit of perfection. But even before the strategists could sharpen their pencils, before the telemetry analysts could dive into the depths of raw numbers, the first signs of drama emerged. Aston Martin's garage, usually a well-oiled machine of calculated precision, was suddenly gripped by tension. Fernando Alonso's car had slowed down unexpectedly on track, triggering immediate concern among the engineers glued to their monitors. In an instant, a wave of uncertainty spread through the paddock. Was it a minor glitch? A fuel load experiment? A strategic ploy to keep rivals guessing? Or was it something far more alarming, a reliability gremlin lurking in the depths of the AMR-24? Alonso, a veteran with decades of experience, didn't flinch. He continued at a measured pace, seemingly unfazed. But anyone who has followed the sport long enough knew that in Formula One, even the smallest hiccup can snowball into a nightmare. Reliability is the silent assassin of championship dreams. One tiny mechanical fault in testing can evolve into a season-defining Achilles heel when the stakes are highest. And with Aston Martin already under scrutiny for its inconsistent form in the latter half of the previous season, the last thing they needed was lingering doubts creeping in before the lights went out at the first Grand Prix. While the green machines were caught in a storm of speculation, over in the Red Bull camp, the reigning champions were conducting their business with their signature blend of ruthless precision and controlled aggression. Dominance in Formula One is never static. It's an ever-evolving battle against complacency, and Red Bull knew this better than anyone. They weren't just testing, they were dissecting every aerodynamic nuance, squeezing every ounce of performance from their latest machine. Flowvis paint covered sections of the RB20's bodywork, glowing under the midday sun as engineers meticulously analyzed how air danced across the surface, searching for any inefficiencies, any potential areas of untapped speed. But even the most finely tuned machines aren't immune to the razor-thin margins of error in modern F1. Liam Lawson, eager to prove his worth, pushed the limits a fraction too far. Coming into a heavy braking zone, he misjudged the bite point, locking up his tires and leaving deep flat spots on the rubber. A minor incident in the grand scheme of things, but a stark reminder that these cars are on the edge at all times. In this sport, even a millisecond of hesitation or an ounce of overconfidence can be the difference between a perfect lap and a costly mistake. Then, the timing screens delivered a shock that rippled through the paddock like a bolt of lightning. When the checkered flag fell on the morning session, the name at the top of the leaderboard wasn't Verstappen, wasn't Leclerc, wasn't Hamilton, it was Kimi Antonelli. The Mercedes Jr., a prodigious talent long heralded as a future superstar, had turned the pecking order on its head. His lap was smooth, controlled, deceptively fast. His name now sat above Lawson's and an ever-impressive Alex Albon, who had once again defied expectations in the seemingly underdog Williams. Whispers spread like wildfire. Was this a fluke? A glory run on low fuel? Or was it a sign that Mercedes had unearthed something special, that they were quietly mounting a resurgence, ready to shake the very foundations of the Red Bull empire? The beauty of pre-season testing lies in the unknown. Every lap invites speculation, every anomaly fuels 100 theories. As the sun climbed higher, the second phase of the day's action loomed, promising another wave of intrigue. New names emerged from the garages, fresh talent eager to etch their mark on the sport's unforgiving landscape. Among them, one debut stood out, a name that had been simmering on the edges of the F1 conversation for months: Gabriel Bortolito. The young Brazilian, stepping onto motorsport's grandest stage, carried the weight of expectation on his shoulders. This was his moment to showcase his prowess, to prove that he belonged among the elite. The cameras were ready. The world was watching. And then, nothing. The track remained eerily silent. The grandstands buzzed with murmurs of confusion. The pit lane was alive with hurried discussions, but no car emerged. An unusual sight, a strange pause in the relentless rhythm of testing. What was happening? This was not hesitation. This was strategy. Every team knew that revealing too much too soon was a dangerous game. Testing is as much a battle of deception as it is of performance. Engineers meticulously crunched numbers, strategists debated adjustments, and team principals exchanged knowing glances. No one wanted to show their true hand. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the first car fired up. The tension broke. One by one, the teams unleashed their machines onto the circuit once more. The dance resumed, lap after lap, sector after sector, each team hunting for answers, chasing an advantage, hiding weaknesses. The air crackled with energy, a palpable sense that every moment on track carried implications far beyond what the timing screens showed. As dusk began to settle over the circuit, the golden hues of the setting sun reflected off the sleek carbon fiber surfaces of these technological marvels. The day was ending, but the war had only just begun. The true hierarchy of the grid remained shrouded in mystery, the battle lines blurred yet undeniably drawn. No one had yet played all their cards, but the stakes were clear. this wasn't just testing. This was the first chapter of the 2025 season. Every lap a statement. Every run a declaration of intent. Every hesitation an opportunity for a rival to capitalize. In Formula One, nothing is ever static. The game is always evolving, the competition always sharpening. Today had offered just a glimpse into the storm that was brewing. And as the teams packed up, their minds already fixated on the next session, one thing was undeniable: this season was going to be an all-out war. The script was still unwritten, but the opening act had already set the stage for what promised to be an unforgettable battle for supremacy. Isaac Hadjar, the rising star of racing bulls, was the first to venture out onto the circuit, his car emerging from the pit lane with an air of quiet confidence. The track was pristine, the sun still low on the horizon, casting long shadows over the asphalt as the first session of the day got underway. Hadjar, methodical in his approach, completed his installation lap, his car slicing through the air with precision. His outlap was clean, his movements precise, but his was merely the opening act. Within minutes, Esteban Ocon followed suit, his Haas roaring to life as he rolled out onto the track. Yet, despite the presence of these early runners, the real show was about to begin. Then came the moment the entire paddock had been waiting for. From the shadows of the Red Bull garage emerged a familiar figure, a three-time world champion, the reigning king of Formula One, Max Verstappen. The Dutchman, unflinching and composed, climbed into his machine with the same cold efficiency that has defined his career. The air seemed to shift as his RB21 was wheeled out onto the tarmac. A predator unleashed. Verstappen wasted no time. From the moment he exited the pits, he was already operating at a different level. His outlap was aggressive, his car humming in perfect harmony with the road beneath it. It wasn't just about testing, it was about sending a message. Every movement of the steering wheel was deliberate, every brake input meticulously measured. While others focused on mileage accumulation, Verstappen was there to fine-tune his masterpiece, to find the extra tenth that separates the great from the legendary. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc was executing a different strategy. The Monegasque, eyes set on Ferrari's long-awaited resurgence, committed himself to an extensive data-gathering run. Lap after lap, he pushed the SF25 to its limits, his goal not merely to set fast times, but to extract every possible insight. Ferrari's mission was clear: to build a machine capable of finally bringing the championship back to Maranello. With each passing lap, Leclerc fed invaluable information to his engineers, the team tirelessly adjusting, refining, and adapting. But then, an unforeseen variable came into play. The dark clouds in the distance, initially dismissed as an afterthought, were no longer just an aesthetic backdrop. The first droplets of rain began to fall, turning the once perfect surface into a deceptive challenge. The track, now slick and unpredictable, demanded immediate strategic adaptation. Some teams opted to remain in the pits, unwilling to take unnecessary risks. Others, however, saw an opportunity. In a sport where preparation is everything, the chance to test in unpredictable conditions was too valuable to pass up. Braving the slippery surface, a handful of drivers ventured out, eager to collect crucial wet weather data. These were the moments that separated the bold from the cautious. Those who dared to push the limits now would be the ones best prepared when the skies opened on a crucial race weekend. The rain was light, but enough to throw a wrench into carefully laid-out testing programs. Grip levels fluctuated unpredictably, forcing drivers to adapt on the fly. And then, a surprise contender emerged. George Russell, often considered an outsider in recent seasons, stunned the paddock by posting the fastest time of the session. His Mercedes, which many had written off after 2 seasons of struggle, suddenly looked formidable. Was this the beginning of a resurgence? Had Mercedes finally rediscovered the formula that once made them untouchable? The whispers in the garages grew louder. While the focus remained on lap times, an unnoticed innovation was quietly making waves. In the Sauber garage, a new feature was being tested: LED indicators on the team's wheel guns, turning green when a tire was perfectly secured. A seemingly small change, but in the high-stakes chess game of Formula One, where milliseconds can decide races, even the tiniest innovations can prove to be revolutionary. And then, just as the session seemed to be finding a rhythm, all hell broke loose. Out of nowhere, a power outage struck the circuit. The garages were plunged into darkness, mechanics forced to scramble for flashlights to continue their work. Monitors flickered off, telemetry feeds went dead, and engineers sat in frustration as the FIA scrambled for a solution. A red flag was deployed, the session halted while the issue was assessed. For several tense minutes, teams waited. The power failure had not only disrupted running, but also thrown countless carefully planned testing programs into disarray. Every lost minute meant less time on track, less data, fewer chances to optimize setups. The FIA, recognizing the severity of the situation, made a swift decision: the session would be extended. Once the track was reopened, the atmosphere had shifted. The intensity cranked up to another level. Drivers returned to the asphalt with renewed urgency, pushing harder than before. What had started as a routine session was now a battle for supremacy. Bortolito and Verstappen found themselves engaged in an unexpected duel, weaving through traffic, jockeying for position in what was supposed to be a non-competitive session. Their rivalry was unspoken but evident. No one wanted to yield, not even in testing. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz, now a Williams driver, was methodically logging lap after lap, getting acquainted with his new machinery. The Spaniard, meticulous in his approach, was determined to make an impact. His lap time showed promise, but there were signs of adaptation still needed. Small mistakes, tiny corrections that suggested he was still molding himself to the car's behavior. And then, in the dying minutes of the session, came the biggest shock of the day. Lando Norris, in a moment of brilliance, delivered an unexpected masterstroke. His McLaren roared to the top of the timing sheets, dethroning Russell and Verstappen. The paddock was stunned. Was this a sign of a legitimate McLaren resurgence? Or was it simply the result of an optimized run plan? Questions swirled, speculation ran wild. But as always in testing, numbers only tell part of the story. What did these results truly mean? Was Mercedes genuinely back in contention? Had Ferrari finally delivered a machine capable of fighting for a title? Were Red Bull's seemingly minor struggles a harbinger of their eventual downfall? Or was this all an illusion, a cleverly crafted smokescreen before the real war began? One thing was undeniable: Formula One had entered a new phase. The balance of power was shifting, and the landscape of the 2025 season remained an enigma. In just a matter of weeks, the teams would line up for the first race, and when the lights went out, all speculation would be silenced. For now, engineers will retreat into their simulation rooms, poring over every fraction of data. Every lap will be analyzed, every setup refined, every possibility considered. The relentless pursuit of perfection continues. And in the midst of it all, one question lingers: are we standing on the precipice of a new era? Will Lewis Hamilton cement his legacy with an 8th title in Ferrari Red? Is Antonelli the next prodigy destined to reshape the sport? Can anyone truly challenge the Verstappen Red Bull dynasty? The stage is set. The pieces are moving. And the 2025 Formula One season is shaping up to be a spectacle unlike any before. So, what do you think? Is this the year we witness a seismic shift in the sport? Will McLaren finally reclaim its place at the top? Will Red Bull maintain its iron grip, or is the end of their dominance near? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe, because what's coming next will redefine everything. This is just the beginning.